Dewey Hammond here with NFL scout Dave Rosano. Dave, thank you for your time. We're here to talk about the AFC North. A lot of talent in the AFC North. Cincinnati Bengals making a lot of noise this offseason. Baltimore Ravens doing the same thing. Big Ben and the Pittsburgh Steelers making the wrong kind of noise. But there's a lot of competition for that crown in the AFC North. Who do you like to win it all?
Well, I'll tell you, I like the Baltimore Ravens and the Bengals to battle it out all the way to the end of the season. I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think those teams are both very talented. I would give the edge to the Ravens right now because of their defense. But again, I think the Bengals are going to be the surprise team this year in the AFC.
Well, let's talk about the Bengals. Obviously made a lot of noise signing T.O. this offseason, but another receiver that they picked up this offseason that you like even more to impact that offense, Jordan Shipley. Talk about Jordan Shipley and why he'll make such an impact this season in Cincinnati.
Well, I think it was an absolute steal. The guy had 248 catches at Texas. He's an outstanding competitor. He works to get open. He's a true gamer. Great hands, and I think he'll be the bread and butter guy for that offense this season. I think Palmer will find him quite a bit on third down. And again, to take some of the pressure off of Ocho Cinco, to pick up Terrell Owens, and to have this kid, to go along with the tight end as well, Jermaine Gresham, the best tight end that the franchise has ever had. That team is loaded now on offense with skilled players, and then with the running backs, Benson, and this Bernard Scott, who will soon be a household name. I really believe Shipley is a great addition for him, and that team's going to score a lot of points this year.
On paper, is this the best Bengals offense in history?
Without a doubt. I think this is the most talented team offensively and defensively. They have no more excuses. I think this team could win upwards of 12 games, loaded on both sides of the ball. They've done an outstanding job acquiring talent there. And again, to have Carson Palmer helps too. You have the franchise quarterback to go with all that talent is exactly what they need. And I expect them to contend for the AFC crown at the end of the year.
What are the weaknesses there in Cincinnati?
Well, their offensive line's a little, they need a little more depth in the offensive line. That's the one weakness. Their offensive line interior is not real strong. The tackle, Andre Smith, really needs to lose weight, get in shape, and come on. They took him in the top of the first round last season. So again, a lot depends on Andre Smith getting in shape and playing. He can play when he's in shape. So the offensive line's a little bit of a question mark right now. But again, their offensive skill is such that, boy, it may not matter.
Questionable offensive line in Cincinnati. I know that Baltimore, I know you love their defensive front seven. Talk about how they match up with the Bengals and what you like about the Ravens defense this year. Obviously, they've always been at the top since Ray Lewis has been in the league, they've been up near the top.
What I like about the Ravens is their depth. Their second-team defense could be a top 10 defense. I really believe that in the league. They're a little light at the corner, but their front seven is outstanding. They continue to add players and load up with the defensive line and linebackers. And they just know how to harass the quarterback. And Terrell Suggs, look for him to have a great season. He's healthy. Halati Nada, he really space eats and clogs things up. And of course, Ray Lewis, he'll be very productive until the day he walks off the playing field. So Jarrett Johnson, they have so many players, so many competitors on that team. And no, I like the Ravens. I like their temperament and the way they play, and they always come to play.
So who are some of those second-string guys in Baltimore that you think could be top 10 defense players on other teams? Who are some of those? Throw some of those names out.
Well, there's guys like Dan Ellerby, the linebacker. He's good. There's guys like there's Terrence Cody, the big guy from Alabama, the rookie. Not a bad space eater himself. They just seem to have a lot of guys on that squad that can step in and be starters on most teams. They have a guy Antoine Barnes, the outside edge rusher. He's an explosive player, but again, at Baltimore, he's a second-tier guy. So you just have a lot of depth in that front seven, and again, when you have that kind of depth, one injury, two injuries won't hurt them. So again, I don't think they're going to miss a beat from last season.
Now, it's fortunate that their front seven is strong because their defensive backfield has taken a lot of hits over the years. They're not nearly as strong as they used to be. They do not defend well against the pass. They got a lot of guys that, frankly, are no-names at cornerback and even at safety. Ed Reed is probably never going to be 100% healthy ever again and might not even play. What do you think about Baltimore's defensive backfield and specifically their weakness at the cornerback position?
Well, that is a weakness for them right now, and they really have to shore that up. So they're going to be young at the corner position. Their safeties really have to step up to Juan Landry, and of course you said Ed Reed. But again, they're just going to really have to get pressure from the front seven. They're going to really have to step up the pressure. Those cornerbacks are going to be tested. Maybe they can make a move to acquire somebody. I like the young guy Chris Hawkins they picked up off waivers recently from LSU, the rookie. So again, I think their front seven can compensate. they're so ferocious and getting after the quarterback. So that's a little bit of a question mark. But that's going to be that's a big question for them this year. Is their corner? So we'll see what happens.
Team on the rise. They've been, seems like, perpetually on the rise. The Cleveland Browns probably, in your opinion, going to finish at the bottom of the division again this year. But you like what you see long term, and over the past few years, they've made some great pickups. Joe Thomas on the offensive line, and they've gotten guys that are solid.
Well, when you're a struggling franchise and you're bringing Mike Holmgren and Tom Hecker, the general manager, those are two outstanding guys at what they do, and I think they have direction now. And it does help to have a really nice, solid, young offensive line. That's always a good starting point. Picking up Delhomme was a great move. He's not at the top of his game, but he's a great leader and a good sort of West Coast type quarterback. And they have some young receivers, but what they do have is a really good young defense. They have some defensive playmakers. Eric Wright on that team, the Joe Hayden, the other rookie, the corner they got from Florida. They have some defensive players. Picking up Scott Fujita. They see Sean Rogers. They have some building blocks on that defense, and they have depth at linebacker. So I think it's going to keep them in some games. They're going to be in some close games, but they're going to be a competitive football team. They won 4 games at the end of 2009, and they definitely didn't quit for Mangini. So I think it was smart for Holmgren to keep Mangini around, see what he can do, and I just think they're going to be very competitive in a lot of close games this season.
Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously a difficult offseason with Big Ben and his antics, missing at least 4 games, potentially up to 6. How do you see that suspension impacting the Steelers, and why do you see them coming up short this season?
Well, I think it's a huge loss. I think when you go from Roethlisberger, who's already won 2 Super Bowls, to Byron Leftwich, who's really struggles at that position, that's going to be a big loss, and they're going to have to somehow get through the early part of the season and try to win some games because they could lose the season early on. I think their offensive line's a little bit in shambles. I think the defense, getting Polamalu back will help. Getting Aaron Smith back off, he's an awful good defensive lineman as well. But I think they're always going to be decent on defense, but their biggest issue right now is the quarterback situation. And Leftwich is just not a good football player in my book. They're going to struggle with him at quarterback.
And what do you say to the Steelers fans out there who say, you know what, throw Dennis Dixon in there?
Well, again, I think if I had a choice of the two, I'd still go with Leftwich. I think Dixon is a flash guy. He's a good athlete. He's a guy that he has a strong arm, but again, his decision making hasn't always been sound, and he struggles, I think, reading defense because he does throw some picks that he shouldn't. So he's young. He'll flash for you, but at the end of the day, I still think their best option at this point is Leftwich. Not a guy I like, but I think it's still a better option than Dennis Dixon.
When you look at the rest of their offense, they don't have their power player, Santonio Holmes, anymore, but they still do have Hines Ward, who seems to have been in the league now for 20 seasons. Has he lost a step? Does he still bring the same ferocity that he has always brought? And also, what do you like about Mendenhall? Do you see him having any impact this year in the running game?
I think Hines Ward is Mr. Consistency. He's always going to show up and produce. You don't have to worry about him. He always goes 100 miles an hour. Rashad Mendenhall does have a history of getting dinged up, and his toughness was questioned in college, but he's a good, strong runner. Not the best blocker, but he is a strong runner. The question of Mendenhall is will he play with Knicks? So, again, I think he's going to be under the microscope a little bit this season. A big key for them is going to be the guy on the other side of Mike Wallace, this receiver they had from Ole Miss last season. I expect him to have a big-time season. He's got a lot of talent, a lot of skill, a lot of speed. And so they're set with their offensive guys. They have Heath Miller. Again, their backup's a little bit shaky. The backup running back position's a little bit shaky for them. But Jonathan Dwyer might come through, the rookie out of Georgia Tech. So they have question marks, but none bigger than the quarterback situation without Roethlisberger.
Are there any veterans on that team that produced at a high level last year that you don't see performing well this year?
The outside linebacker James Harrison, he's been a little hot and cold the last couple of years, and he might be reaching the end of his prime. So he's a little bit of a question mark. So maybe they'll put in the kid they got out of Florida State a couple of years back in the first round. He's playing inside now, but he was an edge rusher in college. So James Harrison's a little bit of a question mark for me.
Dave, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dewey.
All right.